Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I am your host, Kelly Sarlo. I am one of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness, and we have a special episode for you today. I am here with a wonderful guest, one of our thriving clients, our hardest working clients, Leslie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. I know that you have given this podcast recording tons of thought. I know that as a person in general, you are probably one of the most thoughtful and reflective individuals that I have met. So I'm really excited for this conversation today. Yeah. So we reached out to ask you if you'd like to do kind of a testimonial format because your journey in the Breaking 90 Fitness program has been pretty unique. So can you start by telling us kind of where you were at when you joined the program?
Yeah, so I am a mom of two. My youngest is a little over 2 years old. So when I started with the program, oh gosh, she was probably 1.5. So believe it or not, my goals were not to lose weight. It was just more to be energetic, be able to play with them and not be tired, just be healthy in general, and to change my eating habits. So kind of what I was thinking was, oh, I'm breastfeeding. I can eat whatever I want because I need more calories. I need to be able to, provide nourishment for her. But in my mind, it was, okay, well, I can eat ice cream. I can eat cookies. I can eat whatever I wanted. Turns out that's not the case because it's not very healthy for you and you end up gaining weight. So yeah, my biggest thing was just, I need to not necessarily cut it out, but just kind of, cut back, I guess, and just make healthier choices.
Cool. So you're talking about being lethargic, which I mean, every new parent can understand and empathize with. It's not just the physical changes that you're undergoing, but also the environmental changes and emotional taxation for sure. But you had two young kiddos. So before children, what was your lifestyle like?
I had a lot more flexibility. I could go to the gym when I wanted to. I could spend 2 hours at the gym if I wanted, or half an hour. Now my time is very limited, and at least both of my kids are a little bit older now that they can play with each other and kind of do their thing as long as I'm also still in the room. So there are times where I can get a workout in while they're playing. But most of the time I wait until they're in bed just so that I can actually focus on myself and focus on doing the movements properly. So anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour is kind of where I'm at right now.
Cool. But prior to the program, I know you talked a lot about being an athlete. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, motherhood, carrying children changes your body.
Yes.
So what were you looking to either get back to? What kind of condition were you wanting to be in when you started?
I wanted to eventually lose weight. As I mentioned before, that wasn't really my goal, but now I'm working more towards that. So I did want to lose some of the baby weight, excuse me, and just kind of get my muscles back to where they were. Of course, your expectations have to change a little bit because your body has changed a lot after having two kids. So I'm slowly getting back to where I am and just trying to lose the baby tummy.
Cool. I love it. So, okay, when you walked into the program, what were your expectations? What were you thinking you were in for?
I honestly didn't really know in the beginning. Like, I know that I had some conversations with Alex and he was saying, there's going to be a lot of accountability from the group, from the coaches, that kind of thing. And anytime I've started with any program, they always say, oh yeah, don't worry, you have us. And that's not really the case. So I was actually really pleasantly surprised with the support that I get from the coaches and from other people within the group, which is awesome. And then not only that, with the points in the calendar, I can kind of keep track of what I'm doing, whether it's with my purposeful movement or with my eating habits. So I'm able to see on a larger scale how I've done. So a lot of programs don't necessarily have that. So that was really nice. I can actually look back. I've kept all my calendars so I can look back and see how I've done or how I can make changes going forward. So I was very, very happy with that.
That's really cool. I love that you're bringing that up. And for anyone who's listening who has not gone through the Breaking 90 program, Leslie's talking about a tracking system that we use. So we assign different goals unique to each individual based on what they're wanting to accomplish. And each day they have to essentially track whether or not they fulfilled those goals or they didn't. And you're talking about sort of a big picture over a time, like a certain time frame, to see your own consistency, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So, okay, when you first began, how demanding was it? What kind of changes was it for you?
For me, so the workouts weren't super demanding. I think the thing that was hardest for me at the beginning was just trying to figure out how the points work and how each food fits into each category. So after about a week, I was able to get it down pat, but I definitely felt like the first day I was like, okay, this is very overwhelming. I need to look at my calendar. How many points do I have? What can I eat? Mm-hmm. So at the beginning I was like, oh, well, I can't eat anything. All I can have is fruit or veggies. Like I can't do this. But again, with the support of the group, one of my cousins is actually in the group as well, and she was in for quite a while. So I leaned on her a lot just to say like, hey, how did you manage to do this? And she was very helpful. Alex was helpful. Jerica, yourself. So yeah, I was able to make it through.
That's really cool. So I'm going to kind of call you out here, because though you may have actually leaned on your cousin, you also showed up for all of the accountability calls. And I'm grateful that you had her as a resource for sure, but you made such an active effort to be involved in our group settings, learning from everyone and taking in information from more experienced clients, all of the coaches, and like you never back down from asking a question, which is amazing.
Yeah, I joke with Alex, I always feel bad because I'm the one that asks a million questions, and I've probably asked the same question multiple times. But I'm sure there's lots of other people within the group that, have the same question or maybe just haven't really thought about that. So it's good. It's always good to ask a question, and no question is a stupid question.
100%. And I think it's one of the reasons that you've seen as much progress as you have, because you have chosen to be that active and that vocal about your own needs. Mm-hmm. And you are someone, I can say this quite honestly and speak on behalf of the other coaches. You take such ownership over your own experience, and you put so much effort into your communication with all three of us that, again, I think that's another reason that you're seeing such progress, is that you communicate not just about struggles, but that's very important. Mm-hmm. You also communicate your wins. You communicate your questions and your uncertainties so that you have the clarity and direction that you need to move forward, whether the goal has changed or stayed the same.
Yeah, I think it's a really big thing to communicate, whether you're, in a slump or you're doing well. If you don't know what you're doing and you're not asking the right questions, then you're not really doing yourself a favor or anybody else. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Very well said. So, okay. Aside from time and energy, were there any other problems or obstacles that you were facing when you first walked into the program?
Not really. I think those were my biggest things. I just, like I said, I wanted to be able to be there for my kids and, not be in this hazy fog of a day. And I noticed once I actually started changing the way that I ate, that helped a lot. And, I would, prior to the program, I would still take my kids out for a walk. I'd still, go for a bike ride and haul them everywhere. But it was never consistent. It was just, okay, I'm feeling good today. Let's, the weather's nice. Let's go outside. Whereas now I make an effort to either do something for myself or say, hey kids, it's not -20 out, it's -1. Let's go for a walk.
Yeah. And you're out west, further west than most of our listeners.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So consistency has become a huge factor. Now, I know, just having worked with you for a while now, that you are someone who can really quickly shift your mindset. As soon as a new concept or idea is given to you, it's like you can reframe something and move forward with a lot of ease. And I know you didn't identify mindset as an obstacle when you walked in, but what did you uncover about your mindset throughout this process?
The biggest thing was actually the 6-week challenges that we've gone through.
Yeah.
I realized that I can actually do a whole lot. Like if I put my mind through it, then it can be done. So again, for listeners who haven't heard about the 6-week challenge, the first week is the hardest. You're not eating a whole lot. Like the first day you've got just fruits and veggies and then protein. So that for me was very, very tough the first time around. I was still nursing my daughter. I was afraid that, thinking about myself and actually doing this challenge and losing this weight was going to take away from her. So I was very on the fence. I actually made the decision the day that the challenge, or I guess the day before the challenge started. Okay, I'm going to do this. So yeah, I never thought that I'd be able to do that. Going in, even with like some of the workouts, Jerica just kind of puts in whatever she thinks you can do. And then of course she just says modify as needed, which I did. So going in, I couldn't do push-ups from my toes, and now I can, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's helped a lot to, again, have you as a mindset coach. And then not only that, when you're thinking about all of these negative things, you're like, oh, well, I just had such a crappy day, or, I had a really bad meal, bad as in like something that's not part of the way that you're eating right now. But whenever I frame it that way, one of the coaches, whether it's you, Jerica, or Alex, it's like, okay, so what? You had a bad meal or you had a bad day. Think about the positive side of it. Like, okay, take that one meal, don't worry about it. Your next meal, get back on track. So that's helped me a lot. Whereas, some people are like, oh, well, I'll start in the new year. I'm just going to take the rest of the year off and do whatever I want and then change my mindset then, which usually works for a week. Excuse me, usually works for a week. And then you're back to the way that you were.
Cool. I want to touch on a couple points that you made, just kind of like draw them out for listeners, if you don't mind, because when I originally asked you about, what did you discover about your mindset, you had mentioned that like you didn't feel like you were actually struggling with it at all, which is awesome. And then as you continue talking, you were saying like, you were catching yourself with some of the negative thinking that we don't necessarily always identify that we're doing, or even identify it as an obstacle or a block. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're actually talking about much more awareness and being able to observe your own thoughts and shift them. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that, I mean, a lot of the mindset things aren't necessarily with this program. There are a lot of things that I've gone through personally over this last, I haven't been with you guys for a year, I think maybe 9 months. But there's a lot of things that I've had to deal with personally with either my family or my kids or my husband. And, a lot of the time I feel alone having to deal with all this. And then I just bring it up either with the group or individually with the coaches, and everybody's there to help. They're not saying, oh, well, you still need to focus on eating well. You still need to focus on all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, just take a step back. If you need to, if I'm sitting at an 8 when it comes to nutrition and I have to bump it back down to a 6 or a 5, okay, fine. We'll revisit it when we're back to the proper mindset. Yeah. So that has helped a lot. It's that all or nothing mentality that a lot of people get stuck in, and I still get stuck in it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. Nobody is, but you just have to take a step back and actually sit and think, okay, what are my goals? What can kind of fall to the wayside for now until you focus on what needs to be dealt with?
I love it. I absolutely love it, because you're talking about taking a lot of the principles that we might apply to nutrition and movement, and you're now talking about knowing how to apply them to personal things outside of the program itself, which is going to help overall in life. And the self-awareness that you've built around your decision making too. I could celebrate you all day, and that's definitely one of the things that we're doing here. But I also wanted to point out too, you brought up the challenge, which I wasn't anticipating you doing or talking about today. But for anyone who's listening, we have a 90-day program. And then within the 90 days, we will often run a special separate 6-week challenge for individuals who want to test different limits, right? So the point is to push our comfort zone. You can opt in or out. It's not mandatory. And, you're saying the first week is the hardest, which I think every single person would agree. It tests us. It tests our body. It tests our mental, I won't say mental stability, but it tests our capacity. Yeah, totally. It tests our capacity sometimes of what we think we can and can't do, which I think a lot of our individuals that are in the program come out having learned something about themselves, whether it's that worked for them and they loved it, or what, that's not for me, then that's just good to know. Something similar that we do is kind of challenges around fasting. Some people find out they absolutely love it and their body responds really well to it. For others, it's like, nope, needs to be off the table. That's not how my body or my brain needs to function. And so you have all these different opportunities within the program to learn more about yourself so that you can incorporate whatever you feel works best into a longer lifestyle, of course.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to Leslie. So I want to ask you, what solutions did you discover for yourself from this program? And you can speak to anything, whether it's fitness, movement, mindset, whatever you want.
Okay. Let me just check my notes here, because I did write some stuff down. So the biggest thing for me was how to make better choices when it came to food. As I mentioned kind of at the beginning, I was eating everything and anything. And, I wouldn't say that I was a terrible eater, but I ate too much. And I found that out quickly after I started with the program that, okay, I am overeating. I could, I would just shovel the food in my mouth because I had 2 kids that I was trying to, feed at the same time. And I needed to get the food in as quickly as I could. So you're not actually being mindful about how much you're eating. You're just, you're eating as much as you can. And then you're like, oh, well, I'm still hungry. I'm starving. So then you have another portion that's either the same size as your first or, a little bit less. So that was huge for me. And then, the other big thing was you don't actually have to eliminate all of these bad foods. And I say bad in quotations. You just have to moderate. So, you can still have that piece of pizza. But, make your choices throughout the rest of the day as part of your goals. That's a huge thing, which, now that I've learned, I'll be able to carry that forward for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And not to starve yourself to incorporate the pizza. Just like you said, make mindful choices around the rest of the day. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. And then, BAM. I'm drawing a blank on, bare ass minimum. There we go.
Yeah.
So doing something is much better than doing nothing. So that was my thing. It's like, okay, well, and I still feel that sometimes during the day where I'm like, okay, I'm so exhausted from, running the kids around to their sports or, having to clean the house or just doing chores in general. And then I'm laying there on the couch thinking, okay, can I get myself up to just do something? And even if it's just stretching one night because my body needs it or my muscles are really sore, do it. Or yoga or whatever, it is what it is. So that's one of my main takeaways.
Mm.
And then the other thing for me was understanding the stress, water intake, how all of that, and even lack of sleep, how all of that just plays onto your everyday. And the scale, like anybody who's in this program will know that they have a love-hate relationship with the scale. There are days where I'm like, yeah, this is so wonderful. And then there's other days where I just want to toss it out the window. But you need to remember, okay, what did I eat yesterday that may have made me retain water? Did I not drink enough water? Did I have a crappy sleep? Am I stressed? Do you have an injury? Are you going through something emotionally? Like there's just so many factors. So you can't just look at that one day. You have to look at the whole grand picture of everything.
Yes, and I want to say, speak to another one of your strengths. So I'm going to toot your horn again here, is that you, with 2 young kids, very active children, like you have a lot of stress, right? You have a supportive husband who is physically not present because of his job.
Yeah.
And so a lot falls on your shoulder in your household. And you are not someone who brushes that off and goes, well, I'm not stressed. That's my norm. You have actually recognized that this is a constant stress in my life and I'm navigating it day to day, but that doesn't make it less stressful just because it's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And I really, really love that, because that is your willingness to see it for what it is, instead of staying in denial, thinking that your body should have adapted to the stress. Right. Yeah. Cool.
Perfect example. This last week, my daughter was sick. She had some kind of flu bug. And I was shocked that the scale was not showing that I'm not sleeping. I'm not, not moving the way that I was. And, I was still getting my food in and all that kind of stuff, but there's just so much going on. And then finally, a couple days after everything had calmed down and she was better, I saw the scale jump up and I was like, okay, now it's finally coming in.
Great awareness. I like, not that I am happy that happened to you. I'm thrilled that you took all of the principles, took the concept essentially and put it into practice to say, I understand what this spike is showing me. And like that reduces people's anxiety, right? Instead of going to beat yourself up and say like, well, what did I do wrong, quote unquote, you can actually look at it and go, well, that makes sense. And that's not a reflection of my actual weight. That's a reflection of my circumstances and my body holding on to all of it.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for you. So, no, did I cut you off? Because there's other stuff I want to ask you.
Nope.
Okay, wonderful. So I wanted to touch on the results that you've seen, because, like you said, you've been with us for around 9 months now, and you've made such solid commitments to your own consistency. What are you noticing? And we can look at physically, we can look at mentally, we can look at emotionally. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so physically, I think I've lost almost 25 pounds, which is amazing. Like sometimes when I still look at myself in the mirror, I don't really see it. But then when I actually focus on different parts, I can see, okay, yeah, my arms are much more toned. My mummy tummy is slowly deflating. My legs, I feel a lot stronger when it comes to working out. Like I can lift a lot more, or I can do more reps. I'm not as winded going up the stairs. I know, like, that sounds super embarrassing, but that's a lot of, like, I'm sure a lot of people feel that. I can run around with my kids a lot better and not I don't feel like I have to have a break, which is crazy. My kids just run circles around me and there's not even out of breath. I'm like, okay, mom needs to have a little break.
That's awesome. We're all great.
Yeah, and then mentally, just I've had that support. I know what to look for when it comes to certain things, and if I have an issue or a little bit of a setback, then I've got everybody else around me to help try to sort things out. So yeah, I can't speak highly enough about this program.
Thank you. That's really kind. I know I've said this in another way throughout our time together today. You are someone who is an excellent example to others of speaking up for your needs, right? I think this is a very common theme, especially amongst the people that we work with, because we mainly deal with women, busy women in particular, where asking for what we need is a really big difficulty. We don't want to be a burden to other people. We think they're just as busy as we are, therefore I shouldn't. But you just get right on Messenger, you get right on the calls, and you will say, I need blank. And that's the only way that we can actually be there for you.
Yeah, I think it did take a while for that to actually happen. Like you said, we feel like we need to take the world on our shoulders and deal with everything ourselves and not actually ask for the help. And it was in one of our group calls that you were saying, you know, okay, this is my topic. These are things, you know, if you feel like you need help or you need to speak up about something, please feel free to come chat. And it came at a really good time because there, like I said, there were some things that were going on with my family that we're all still dealing with at the time. And I didn't really know what to do, how to deal with this new thing that we needed to deal with in our lives. And you know, like you mentioned before, my husband's away half the time, so it was a lot. And I was able to discuss it with both you and Alex, and we found a way to deal with everything within my program so that I wasn't, you know, losing any of the, any of the stuff that I've gained, where like with workout and nutrition and that kind of thing. It was just more of like, okay, we're just going to keep you on a little bit of a maintenance phase so that you're not necessarily going to gain weight or go back to eating like garbage. But just give me a little more leeway when it comes to certain things.
Cool. Yeah. I want to kind of just reword what you said, is that Leslie made the decision not to put herself on the back burner when things got extra busy in her life. You actually decided to put yourself first, which allowed you to actually show up for your family in really wonderful, healthy ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's another decision that a lot of us women make is, well, life just got crazy, therefore I'll put myself aside until everyone else is okay. And in fact, it's just so backwards, because when we are strong, mentally, physically, emotionally, we have the energy to show up for life.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Now, were you going to add anything else?
Nope. That was.
So my last question for you, because you've got precious time with me today and you got to get back to your little ones, is what advice would you give to someone just starting a program or thinking about starting a program? Doesn't have to be Breaking 90.
Just go straight into it. Jump with both feet in. Give it your best and honest shot. That's the only way that you're going to see progress for yourself. I mean, you can listen to me, you can listen to others, you can see on social media how well other people have done, but that's not going to do you any good if you're not willing to put in the effort. And then again, with the food portions and the categories and all that kind of stuff, it is definitely a learning curve. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like, okay, this is too much. I don't think I can do it. But just like I said, give it a shot, give it a chance. And next thing you know, it'll become second nature, because everything is based on your hand sizes for portions. So you know, you've always got your hand, you're always going to know how much you need to eat. Yeah, those were my biggest two advice for anybody.
I love it. This is so great. And for anyone who's like, what do you mean my hand? We have a very simplified measuring system that's always used within our hand. So we measured certain things by a palm, by a thumb size, etc. So it's simplified, so you're not constantly weighing or using measuring utensils. So you're saying, give it time, slow down. You're gonna adapt to it, and it'll be second nature. That's awesome.
Yeah, just don't. I don't know. Again, I think when anyone starts a program, you think, okay, well, I need to do absolutely everything that they say. I need to get my movement in. I need to do this. I need to do that. Just pick 1 or 2 goals that you have and focus on those. And once you have those down pat, then work on the other ones. Just add them in slowly, because I've found, before this program, anytime I try to lose weight or gain muscle or whatever it is, you're trying to do absolutely everything at once. And then you just crash and burn. And it's like, well, that program didn't work. It just didn't work for me. But I think a lot of it is just mentally, you're just exhausted. So.
Oh my God, I loved our conversation today. Thank you. And we always leave the podcast with a tip, and I'm actually going to steal it from Leslie and put it into some different words here. When you were saying what your advice is to people, slow down, just choose to focus on 1 or 2 goals and then add in as they become second nature and you adapt to it. This is just good life advice that you're giving people. So I'm giving you credit here. Like, that's good parenting advice. That's good relationship advice. That's good career advice. Is don't try and do everything all at once and assume that you're failing. Just pick 1 or 2 things to focus on. Do your best, give your biggest effort to that thing. And when it becomes easier or less effortful, then you can layer in the next focus. I love what you brought to the table today, Leslie.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'll let you get back to your kiddos. Thank you for being here. And thank you to all of our listeners for taking the time to tune in to our podcast. If this resonated with you, please like the podcast, share it, leave a review. That always helps to get the message out to more people and push, the podcast into the algorithms, this ominous algorithm talk that we all hear about. And please, if you have any questions, reach out. You are always welcome to DM us on Facebook as well as Instagram. We hope you guys have a beautiful day.